This is Martha.
And that's Kieran.
Hey guys.
Hello and welcome everybody to Bridge Church.
Hi guys.
If this is your first time or you've been here with us before, we hope that you enjoy the service that will happen.
Yes, very much so. And if you're an Ipswich Town supporter, then you're in for a very special treat today because we're lucky to have Toto and Nsiala join us. And now I'm sure many of you are asking, who is Toto and Nsiala? Well, you should be more dedicated to your hometown football team. But no. He's Ipswich Town Football Club's centre back. So we're very excited about that. And I know someone who will also be very excited about that. Don't you, Don't you, Martha?
Yes, I do. And that person is actually the speaker for today.
Oh, really?
Which is Jono.
Jono. Wonderful.
Yes.
And what's he going to be talking about, Martha?
You shall be talking in just a second about God testing us. So we hope you enjoy what he has to say on that.
Yes. Thank you very much. Over to Jono.
Good morning, church. It's so good to be with you here at Bridge Church this morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jono Dorrington. I've been part of Bridge Church since we planted earlier this year. Now, if you've been following us the last couple of weeks, our series has been called The Adventure. We've already heard from Matt Levitt talk on our calling, how wherever we are in our Christian lives, we are called to act justly and humbly, making the best of our circumstances for God. And last week we heard from Reverend Andy Buttress, who spoke to us on being guided on our adventure, specifically through the Holy Spirit and not by fate or by chance. Now, in our adventure in life, I'm sure many of us could tell many examples of hurdles and tests along the way, from the minute to the mountain. School exams, driving test, a blood test, to unemployment, ill health, loss of friends or family or depression, broken relationships. Whatever the test at the time, it can feel like a mountain. Now, you might have gathered that the theme of today's talk is on tests. Now, I want to talk to you. Now, I work in a care home for elderly Christians. And earlier this year, we began weekly COVID testing for all staff members across our charity on the front line. And let me tell you, it's very short, around 30 seconds, yet extremely unpleasant. I certainly think so. You start off by constructing this jigsaw puzzle box, which you've got to send it back in. Now, to you at home, that might be quite easy. But to me, I fumble around aimlessly for minutes getting this small box together. That's my first test. Secondly, and the bit I really don't enjoy, is the swabbing of both the throat and the nose. Let me tell you, I'm not the first in the queue to complete my weekly COVID test, but I happily complete them. The potential to stop an outbreak in our care home, in my place of work, far outweighs the consequences of not being tested. I've also made the mistake of started running recently. So I'm completing some physical training and I want to improve my running time and my fitness. Would it not be sensible to test myself by timing how quickly I'm able to run, just so I can precisely map my improvements week by week? Now, these are just two very small examples of the importance of testing, but in a slightly alternative sense, with a difference in that we more easily associate a positive outcome with them. Being tested by God is a slightly different thing to talk about, and it can easily be misunderstood by many. It's clear that through the Bible, God does test us. However, I want to be clear. Let's put something straight right from the off. God does not send sickness, disease or calamity into our lives to test us. Let me just repeat that. God does not send sickness, disease or calamity into our lives to test us. Those things steal, kill and destroy. Now Jesus, who is the Son of God, is said within the Bible that he is the good shepherd who came to give us life in abundance. But we're also warned in the Bible from a book called John, or written by John, in chapter 16 verse 33, that we will encounter trouble in the world. But we're encouraged as Jesus has overcome the world. So being tested by God is a matter of the heart and for a specific purpose. Now, understanding why God tests us will empower us not only to endure the tests, but find joy in them. In both the Old and the New Testaments, which are two parts of the Bible, the Old Testament's the first part before Jesus was born, the New Testament after he was born. So, in both the Old and the New Testament, the word translates tests means to prove by trial. Therefore, when God tests his children, that's you and I, because we're all children of God, his purpose is to prove that our faith is real. It is not because God has to prove this to himself, since he knows all things, but God is proving to us that our faith is real, that we are truly his children, and that no trial will overcome our faith. It's a mechanism by which we should be relying on him, that's God, and drawing closer to him, that's God, through each test in our adventure. And seeing the positive from the test, i.e. running the race, proving that our faith is getting stronger, we should be drawing closer and closer to God. So a question might arise, well, how can God test us? How does God test us? Earlier on in my adventure in life, I had three quite prominent questions that I found difficult to get my head around. There might be some of you at home that have very similar questions. Does God test our faith sometimes by letting testing times happen to us? It's the first one. If so, why does he do it? Doesn't God know already if we have genuine faith? They're three quite big questions. Now, sometimes God will test our faith, just as he tested the faith of the ancient Israelites by allowing them to go through hard times in the wilderness. But this was done in order to know what was in your heart. Now let's dive into the Bible and have a look at what God says about this in a book called Deuteronomy. The verses say this: "Be careful to follow every command I am giving you today, so that you may live and increase and may enter and possess the land the Lord promised on oath to your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your clothes did not wear out, and your feet did not swell during these 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. Observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, and deep springs, gushing out into the valleys and hills, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce, and you will lack nothing, a land where the rocks and iron, and you can dig copper out of the hills." So let's remember this point. If our faith is weak, it may not be obvious when life's going smoothly and we're not challenged in any way. When the hard times come, like being in the wilderness for 40 years, a weak faith will be revealed for what it really is: shallow and unable to help us through life's difficulties. It may be anything: an unexpected illness, the death of a loved one, the loss of your job, or even a friend who turns against you. But when hard times happen, the true nature of our faith will be revealed. Will we fully depend on God? Will we depend on God in the good times? But also will we depend on God in the testing times? Will you allow yourself to be and fully embrace God's promise of going into a good land on this adventure, walking closely in obedience to God? But God doesn't test us because he doesn't know how strong we are. Instead, he tests us because we don't know how strong we are. We'll only realise that when the testing times come. The psalmist prayed, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." None of us like to go through hard times. Remember, God isn't necessarily behind them, even if he does allow them. But God can use them to show us our weaknesses. When that happens, we need to ask God to help our faith grow. How can we do that? Well, by delving deeper into the Bible. See what this God-inspired and written book says and how it relates to our weaknesses. Or by reading up on God's promises, seeing how faithful he's been for thousands of years. Testing should make us spiritually stronger, and it will make us spiritually stronger as we turn it over to God. There's quite a key reading in the Bible which says this: "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials, so that you may mature and complete." I want you to think about a story which Jesus shared called the parable of the sower. The parable relates to our faith. So let's read it together from the book of Matthew in the New Testament. The parable of the sower. That same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, "A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering his seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came up and ate it. Some fell on rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly, because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced the crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear." Now, think about that test you've just been through, or that you can see on the horizon. And let's think about how God wants us to respond to this test. Remember, for us to show God how strong we are and how strong our faith is, think about how we can have a positive outcome if we choose to sow our seed on good soil, rooted in faith, clinging closely to God. If you don't know Jesus personally, would you consider praying and asking for Jesus to come into your life so that you can be closer to God and sow your seeds in the good soil? Tests can be both an opportunity and a trap. How we react or respond to the tests can define not only the outcome of the test, but can shape our relationship and dependence on God in a good or a bad way. Remember our first point, the importance of testing. Through COVID testing or testing your running times on a weekly fitness run, we can see and mark out improvements, which shows the positive outcomes of testing. Don't get me wrong, I won't enjoy it when I have the slopes around me to run up tomorrow morning, but in time I look forward to mapping my improvements. Our second point this morning was God doesn't test us because he doesn't know how strong we are. Instead, he tests us because we don't know how strong we are, and will only realise it when the times of testing come. Finally, will you sow your seeds of faith in the good soil, in both the good times and the testing times? Will you follow Jesus and ask him to be close to you? Amen.
Thank you so much for your talk, Jono. I hope that your insightful words will help those out there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jono. And now, as I said earlier, we're really lucky to have Toto and Nsiala joining us. And Jono interviewed him earlier in the week, and I know he really enjoyed it. And yeah, so Toto's going to share with us his experiences on testing and trials. So thank you so much, Toto, and enjoy, everybody.
So it's really good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Bridge Church. I was just wondering if you could introduce yourself first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Nsiala, get called Toto for short, because I've got horrible toes apparently. I play centre back for Ipswich Town, and that's it really. There's not much really special about me apart from that.
Awesome. I'm sure there's plenty special about you. Look, so we're looking at God tests this week. But before we kick off, I've got a few quick fire questions for you, just 5. So choose one or the other. Instinct, okay? Superman or Batman?
Superman.
Tea or coffee?
Oof, no, neither. Tea, I'll go for tea. No, with no milk.
Oh, black tea.
Yeah.
Fair. Sweet or savoury?
Maybe.
I like you. Beach or mountains? Fair. Merseyside or Suffolk?
Oh, Merseyside.
That wasn't a trick question. So, look, Toto, could you tell us a little bit about your faith journey?
Yeah. So, I grew up in a Christian home, really. Mum's a strong Christian, and my dad has come into faith really maybe the last 10 years. But like I was always got taken to church. I was always in church at a young age. That was always the thing then with friends and family. We met on Sunday in church was like something I looked forward to. But then I got to the age of 16. I think a lot of young people do this as well when they get to the age of 16, where they go off the rail a little bit. And with football coming into play at that time, with just signing my scholarship with Everton, I had to move away from home, and lived in digs. And when that happened, that's just when I sort of went the other way a little bit, where I wasn't going to church anymore, and I was living just a different lifestyle. Just to it was just the freedom, obviously, that drove me away from what I was brought up with. And then I got to the age of 19, and I got released, and there was a lot of things going on with my old man and with his illness and things, and so it really affected me in terms of like football. I moved back home, so I went through such a tough time, which we'll probably get to talk about. I went through such a tough time where I didn't have anything else apart from to fall back on what I believed in, which was my faith. And that was the only way I was able to pick myself back up and go again. And again, when I picked myself up again, I then lost my way again. A couple of years later, wouldn't say lost my way, but I didn't believe, I didn't have the strong faith as I thought I had. So I stopped going to church again, and I stopped trying to get closer to God. And then it's only maybe in the first lockdown anyway. One of the boys I used to play football for was Josh Emmanuel. I was with my Bolton, so we got speaking again. Then he said he invited me to a group Zoom call with a lot of other. I didn't know what I was getting myself to, but when I joined the Zoom, it was a lot of different players, a lot with the same backgrounds as myself in terms of grew up in a Christian home, and they just wanted to get closer to God. And it was at that moment, sorry, let me just turn on silence. It was at that stage where speaking to other players, and seeing how seen what God and what the faith had done for them, that it made me realize that the only way I could get through what I go through is with God on my side. And he also made me have a look. He also made me look back on what I went through, because at so many times where I was going through these hard times, I questioned God a lot. I was like, I used to literally speak to myself in the car, and I'd be like, is it really a God? Are you really there? Are you really here for me? Or what is, like, and that sort of pushed me away even more, because I was like, there's no one there. Like, there's not even a God. I was so against my belief and faith that I don't know how I'm here right now. And it was just then, that it was just those times. But when I look back at those times and looking back at it now, thinking, wow, it's been miracles and miracles without me seeing it.
Yeah. So, like, you kind of alluded to it there, about sort of some testing times you had. Can you think of a testing time in your life that you've been through, but where perhaps that faith made a difference, either at the time or afterwards?
This is going to be a bit of a long story. I hope you've got some time. So,
Take time.
I left Everton. I think I was 19, and I signed for Accrington Stanley. And they were in League Two then. At that time, my dad got ill. He was got paralysed from waist down, and at that stage, but he was really in a bad way. We didn't know whether he's going to survive or no, but he's ended up pulling through, and so he affected football in a lot of way. And 6 months into my contract at Accrington Stanley, I just thought, I don't know if I was mentally there. I didn't want to turn him to training, so I asked him to rip my contract up, and I'd walk away. And they did that, and I walked away. But then after that, I tried to sign for different clubs, and no clubs were having me. Because I didn't turn up for training and things, word got around and that I was a bad lad. So clubs would let me come out and have a trial, and then after the trial they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll offer you this, we'll sign you this, and then a day later, after speaking to my old manager, they'd be like, oh no, we've got nothing, we've got no money. So that went on for ages, where I even went to Belgium. I remember going to Sweden. I remember this is quite crazy. I went to Sweden, and it was like winter time, and it was absolutely freezing. Didn't know where I was getting myself into. I turned up with just a small jacket, and I was so cold. I had to play the trial game with this jacket under under the jersey, the t-shirt, just to stay warm.
Wow.
And then they ended up saying like it was just basically a waste of time that I was there. Got a flight back, came home. At that time, I wasn't with my partner now. I was with someone else. And then I started going on different trials, and ended up going to Vietnam.
Wow.
Ended up signing for the club, and then a month or two later, the club was like, it was just a joke. They wasn't paying properly, and I was having a tough time. A time where like people would walk past me. It wasn't racism or anything. It was just a way of living over there. People would walk past me and just like feel my skin and run away, and like it was weird. So I ended up getting a flight home. Got a flight home. The partner that I was with at the time just thought, yeah, I'm done with you. Like, I don't want to, because I was sort of failing that much in life. I'm done with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. So I was back home with my mum and my dad. And I remember I had no finance at all. I had no money or anything. 2 weeks later, my car that I was paying for at that time got picked up, because I couldn't keep up with the payments. It got picked up by the finance company, and then I was really struggling. I remember one time when I went to the corner shop, just to buy I think it was, mum asked me to get some milk, and my car got declined for like £2, and that was like such a low time where I was like thinking, like, how am I going to get myself out of this? So, but coming from Vietnam, and it was a sense of it was like a bit of awakening in terms of seeing how people were living over there, because in Vietnam you can have the biggest building ever, and then you can have the next door you can have someone living in a smaller property with less money. So it was seeing like the poverty side of it, and how cheerful people were. back then that sort of opened my eyes up a little bit. So when I moved back home, I decided to call it a day with football and just get a job.
Quite a big decision to make.
I was that low that that was the only way out for me. I was so low where I used to get up at like 12 o'clock, 12 p.m. and just lay on my bed and do nothing because never.
Yeah.
It was so bad as well. At one stage, remember when I had the car, I was driving to a friend, and it was going over a flyover, and I remember ringing my older brother and being like, I'm better off like not being in the world. I got to that stage where I was like at one stage is like this might sound really bad, but I slept with like a knife in my room just because I was so low in life.
Wow.
But the older brother, obviously, he was a rock for me, and kept me going. So I decided to quit football anyway, and I think that was the lowest and the most testful time of my life.
Yeah.
So there's more stories to it, but obviously, I don't want to know if you've got time or.
Yeah. So where does faith come into all of that for you?
Oh, my mum always, while I was going through all those things, my mum had a thing where she kept saying, "Listen, you're gonna be fine. You've always been fine. But everything you do, God seems to always work miracles in your life last minute." And looking back on it now, I was always at the last stage where I was like, that's it, I'm done. Something would happen would always make me come through.
Yeah.
Like better than I dreamed that I was gonna be. And I remember going to I lived in a place called Kensington in Liverpool, and I used to have to get the bus to Toxteth to play football with my friends. And obviously, with not having no money, I decided to walk and to jog there. And as I was jogging, I went past the church, and it was like it was a lively church. It was so loud from the outside. So for some reason, something kept pushing me to go in.
Yeah.
Ended up walking in. There I am with my tracksuit anyway. Ended up walking in, and I sat there for ages, listening to the whole thing. And at the end of the church, didn't really pick much from it. At the end of the church, I was going to walk out, just like sneak out.
Yeah.
The pastor's son called eye contact with me and like literally walked over quick to speak to me.
You must have wanted to hide at that point.
Yeah. We ended up getting into a conversation. It was deep. It was just like I let everything out and spoke to him. And he said to him, "Come next week again." Actually, he invited me around to his mum and dad's house. Some food, and I decided to go. And then the next Sunday they went over again, so I started speaking to my mum more about it. And it was just through that way, like I decided not to lean on my own again and lean on him, lean on God. And I remember the prayer saying to him, I said the prayer with him. I said the prayer was, "You brought me. I still have it in my time. You brought me to it, and you're going to bring me through it. Like if it's not meant to be for me, you take over everything. I'm done."
Yeah.
And then from then, a couple of weeks later, I got the job. Even 2 weeks later, I got the job. And then from getting the job, I got a part-time, signed for a part-time team, Southport, which was it was like starting from the bottom again, and then just went on from there. So it was at my lowest that I had to find my faith really to keep me going. And like I said, I look back on my life now, it's just been miracles and miracles.
Yeah. And it sounds like God's never stopped searching for you, although it's quite hard to see sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, I literally always ask myself the same question in terms of like, why me?
Yeah.
Because I'm not a saint. I've done things that I'm not proud of. But it seems like I'm always in the favor of God on whatever I do or try and do.
God is good, right?
Yeah, honestly.
So, for anybody watching who's going through a testing time at the moment, have you got any advice for them?
What I've learned from my own personal experience is always look back on what he's already brought you through. We literally don't. I was bad for it as well. We don't look and appreciate life first of all, which is the biggest gift we've been given in this earth by God. We don't appreciate that at all. Always look back on what you've been through and what He's took you through, and you always see how small the hurdle you're about to go over is. And I've always said, there's always a saying that my mum always says, it says, "Oh, the book's already written. God has already wrote a whole book, a whole life, and we are just reading the chapters. And you have so much blessing ahead of you that you won't even be able to dream of. I never dreamt of being where I am right now. Might not be the most amazing place, but from where I was, it was out my vision, it was out my sight. I couldn't see where I was going. But through everything that I went through, it made me ready for what I have been able to get. And also, whatever you're going through, whatever hard times you're going through, it's not. I remember I heard that it was Tasha Copper say, God will always break you, but He'll break you gracefully. And he's only going to be breaking you to make you ready for what's to come. If I've never would have been released from where I was and had all that money, I would have been an absolute mess. But because He has took me through all those stages and prepared me for what has now been given to me, it might not be the end result, but He's prepared me for everything that I'm about to achieve in life. And that's what God is doing with you. If you're going through the hard times right now, it's just getting you ready. So don't worry. Just have to pray and lean on Him and let Him hold your hand and jump through every hurdle with you.
That's amazing. Thank you. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy week to join us at Bridge Church, Toto. We really appreciate it. And we'll be praying for you. And obviously, always hoping for 3 points. I'm a big Town fan.
But I'm hoping that we'll be back open soon so I can actually join you in person, which will be great.
We'd love to have you, mate. We really would.
Thank you. I'll be very happy to join you.
Thank you so much, Toto, for taking the time to share your story with us. It was really, really encouraging to hear. Thank you so much.
Yes, and we will be continuing on with Life Source in a short time. So if you would like to join that, the details are on the website or on our Facebook page if you'd like to join us on Zoom, which we'd love you to come along to.
Definitely, you're more than welcome. Yeah, so that's it from us. Virtual fist bump, and until next time. Thanks, guys.
Yes.